Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Think Tank community, a place for all passionate players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. We are bringing on the manager of player development for goaltending for USA Hockey, Steve Thompson. This was a phenomenal conversation. He is a phenomenal hockey guy. Grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, played his college hockey at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and now he is leading the charge at USA Hockey for goaltending growth, goaltending development. What a conversation this was here today. But before we do go over to Steve, let's bring on the talent of the podcast, the one Jeffrey Jehu, Lavecchio, and Vex. We have not talked about this. We forgot to on the last intro, but Western Michigan.
Western
National freaking champions, baby.
We got to get Fershie on ASAP. Take the puck.
You're not going to
score a goal. Onward for the brown and gold. Hell yeah, man. Let's go. Yeah. Wow, dude. They were so good. They were so good. They were so dialed.
Tournament.
Waxed them. Absolutely waxed them. Like unbelievable. Yeah. I got to go to the first game and got to see so many of my teammates. Like, just really, really cool. I know what it feels like to be Toph now, talking about NCAA tournaments with Cornell when you get excited now when they're in it and things like that. And I've never had that, and it was pretty cool. Pretty cool feeling. Won't lie. This side of the street's a lot cooler.
Yeah, we did have first on Pat Ferschweiler, who was the head coach of Western. Was it twice? I thought it was just once.
I think we've had him on twice. Haven't we?
Okay. Either way, go search it out, because the first one that we did with him actually is one of the most downloaded that we've ever done. And just a great hockey guy, great hockey mind. That was a phenomenal conversation. I believe Fersch is also a girl dad, if I remember correctly. Congrats to Fersch, Jason Herder, JJ, crew, and all the staff there at Western. Awesome guys, just great guys. Jason Herder basically built the Minnesota Duluth teams that won national championships in the past decade or so as well. And JJ just really, really good at what he does. I had some interaction with him when I was at Michigan, just another phenomenal hockey guy. So fight on there in Kalamazoo, Steph and Vex. Good for you guys, Natty champs.
I'm going. I said, okay, I have to take a few days off so I get back to this golf outing this year. I can't miss this one now. So any of the guys that listen, you guys better get back there. Let's all meet up and celebrate.
You know, when you said celebrate, it reminded me of Wedding Singer.
Which part?
Holiday. Celebrate.
Yeah, I think they're turning on George in there. Oh my God. That's what that's from. When Robbie Hart, Wedding Singer's crying, they pan to George and he goes, oh my God. Hold out your hands.
Okay,
hold
right. We got to get this back on the rails.
No, we can't.
Pan them in meatballs.
They were cold.
They were cold.
If you are our age and you quoted Wedding Singer like Toph and I do, you are probably loving this right now. If you are not one of those 1% of people listening to podcasts, sorry.
We apologize. Okay. Back on the rails here. This conversation with Steve was unreal. Absolutely unreal. Great hockey guy. Heavily involved, obviously, at USA Hockey. And we got to talk a lot about like the growth of the goaltending position and how important that is, and how we need to do some things differently to get more people to want to play goalie in our game today. And, he's obviously got a great perspective on hockey in general, but we did get into some goalie talk as well. And just like a phenomenal hockey guy. I got the chance to meet him when I was down in Nashville for the USA Hockey annual meetings, their congress there, and got to hear him speak. And I was like, this guy's an absolute stud. We got to get him on the podcast. And stud he was, stud he still is. And yeah, Great conversation.
He will be. Yes.
He will stay.
Yeah, it unreal combo. Like, you guys are gonna really like this one. We've got some bangers coming down the pipeline here, guys. So you're gonna really like this one. You're really gonna really like the one next week. Also, just kind of nerding out on some hockey stuff too. So listen in and share that show.
All right. Before we do get over to Steve, we do have some people to thank. First, want to thank our title sponsor, icehockeysystems.com. The best website out there for all your coaching education needs. They got thousands of drills. They got whiteboard explanations and video breakdowns from high-level hockey people. And you have the ability to go onto the site, draw up your drill, store them in a library, send them out to your team before practice. It is a one-stop shop for all coaching education. We have partnered with them to do an associations platform where you can get this for every single coach in your organization. So go to icehockeysystems.com today and check it out. They got some cool things coming up the hopper too in the next couple months. They are killing it. Dex.
Want to say thank you to Train Heroic. You guys know Train Heroic is where my online training all takes place. It's the cleanest, best app on the market. It allows me to deliver actual videos of me demonstrating and coaching every single thing that I have any player that works online with me. Whether you're an individual or a team, you can train online with me year round to become a better hockey player. We're talking off-season training program right now that's the cheapest it's ever been, and you can also sign up for individual calls with me when you buy that program. And if you buy the online off-season training program, you get those calls for way, way cheaper, and I can help you dial in your nutrition, your mindset, your daily routines, things like that. Just trying to find as many ways as I possibly can to help the hockey world from the gym side of things and training. So thank you to Train Heroic for helping me do that.
And thank you to Helios Hockey, one of the best hockey products out there. This is a sensor that you put in shoulder pads that gives you real-time data, real-time feedback on your play, particularly when it comes to your skating stride. Guys, as you all know, if you want to play hockey at the highest levels, you have to be able to skate. You have to be able to skate. You have to do it efficiently. You have to do it quick, not just stride length, but stride mechanics. Like, this is something that it's not just about the data, but it's about the teaching of it as well. And so go to helioshockey.com today and use the coupon code ThinkTank, one word, and you will get a discount of 20% off your pro annual or your pro 24-month subscription. The absolute game changer with this product, though, is it syncs up with your video and cuts up your shifts for you right after your game. No more when Vex and I were younger and fast forward, rewind. No, you get your shifts cut up here directly after the game, and it links up with whatever video you have, your iPad, your iPhone. It even hooks up with LiveBarn in your rink. And so when you move, that sensor goes, it links up with your video. Just anytime you can make life easier for people, that's what we're trying to do. Can make you better and make life easier, and this is what Helios Hockey does. So go to helioshockey.com today and use that coupon code ThinkTank, one word. Also, want to thank Crossbar, the best end-to-end software solution to help you operate your youth hockey club efficiently. This is an absolute game changer. I know of numerous hockey directors and presidents who have switched over from the sports engines of the world over to Crossbar. It's a little bit leaner. It's a little bit more visibly just better and easier to use as well. So what is it? It is a website, back end. Again, what does it have? It's got a sleek website design. It's got registration for you for anything from big pictures like your whole season to little things like your drop-ins and clinics and lessons. It's got a club scheduler for you, 5-star communications app to communicate with your families, financial tools and reporting, facility and volunteer management. Literally, when I talk about making life easier for you, Crossbar is the ultimate thing that can help you do that if you're running a youth hockey club. So go to crossbar.org today and check it out. And thank you to all of you listeners. We love you guys and appreciate you guys so much. If you could do us a solid, the only thing we ask for in return is that you interact with us on your podcast apps. So any like, any comment, any download, if you follow us, shoot us a rating, all that stuff. Our mission in life, our goal in this hockey world is to promote more positivity, make the hockey world a more positive and better place. And if you feel like we're doing a halfway decent job of that, if you can share us or interact with the podcast wherever you get it today, that just goes a long way to getting into more ears. and making a bigger impact on the hockey world. So thank you. We love to bring on really passionate and smart hockey guests, and you are going to get that with this one today. So without further ado, here we go with the manager of player development for goaltenders for USA Hockey, Steve Thompson. We are so excited to have on this episode of the podcast. He's out in Colorado via Alaska. We got the manager of player development for goaltending for USA Hockey, Steve Thompson. Steve, how are we doing today, man?
Doing great. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
What country do you work with? I can't tell in this video we're watching right now.
Very patriotic.
Hey, I respect it, baby. I love it. That's like when a guy walks into the gym gear on and it's in the summer. I'm like, what time's the bus trip today? When they're decked out in full gear. For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, he's got everything going on, besides maybe a bald eagle in the background, and I absolutely am here for it. I love it.
We're bringing it in next week. Next week we'll have the eagle with us.
I love it. Well, we're excited to talk hockey with you here, and got the chance to hear you speak on a couple different occasions, one down at the USA Hockey Congress in Nashville a couple months ago, then the opportunity to watch you speak again in Wisconsin last month, and just really love your perspective on the game and what you bring to USA Hockey, and particularly the goaltending position. So really looking forward to picking your brain for our listeners here today. But let's introduce you to everybody first. You're an Alaska boy born and bred. So I have a kind of an idea of what the answer is going to be to this question, but how'd you fall in love with the great game of hockey up there in Alaska?
Yeah, I don't know what your answer was, but mine was the Anchorage Aces at the time. My dad was in the Air Force and got stationed in Alaska. We were not a traditional hockey family, didn't have any roots to the game. My dad got free tickets and we went, and Brian Renfrew was the goalie, who's now with the Winnipeg Jets. I think they won 2-0. He was first star of the night. He had the cool pads, the painted mask, and I didn't know what we were watching, but I knew I wanted to be that guy on the ice. And the rest was history. I was about 9 years old at the time and learned how to skate at 9 and tried my best to leapfrog everybody else that had been skating for 5 or 6 years at that point.
I was going to insert joke for Vex here. Were you skating with Stevie Weeks out on the river?
Yeah.
I figured that was coming at one point, but no, Rennie, that's funny. That was Rennie, because we actually had Rennie on the podcast. Oh geez, that was probably a couple of years ago now. It was literally one of the most downloaded ones that we've ever done. He was awesome and came on from an NHL scouts perspective and talked a lot about player development. So that was really cool. So small hockey world to say the least. Let me ask you this, Steve, Alaska, hockey's big in Alaska in different areas, but still kind of like a non-traditional market without an NHL team. You have your two colleges up there in Fairbanks and Anchorage, and people love the game that are involved in it. But what, if you had any advice for kids that maybe come from non-traditional areas, that have a hope and a dream of playing, or maybe parents that have kids that have hopes and dreams of playing, what would you tell kids from non-traditional areas on kind of the path to achieving their dreams in this game?
I would say count your blessings. I think one of the best things that I recognize in Alaska, and I think others in non-traditional markets would see this as well, you have a longer runway. There's less kids that are so competitive so early that I think it gives you the runway to continue to learn these skills and to not feel rushed to be on the key mark team that everybody says, well, if you're not on this team by this age, you're never going to make it. I think in those non-traditional markets, you don't have as much pressure there. And so it gives kids a chance. And there's a ton of opportunity. I think we've had a lot of successful goalies that have come from Alaska, and I'm convinced if they would have grown up in a bigger hockey area where they were maybe the backup because there was some really big stud 8-year-old that they were the backup for, maybe they never would have became who they were, but they had the chance to spend 10 more years developing those skills to become the Jeremy Swayman or Phoenix Copley, fill in the blank.
Or the Steve Thompson.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Throw that
Wiley Rogers. Remember Wiley Rogers? Yeah,
Wiley
man.
Sure is on the Mount Rushmore of Alaskan goaltending.
Yeah, great dude. Great dude. Played with him in the USA, 8 Nations or whatever it was, a long time ago, and then against him when he was on Alaska Fairbanks and I was at Western. Great goalie.
Yeah. Awesome human, one of my best friends.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we talked about Raj. Raj played with Munson and I down in Rio too.
God, wow. The world is so small. It's freaking crazy. The hockey
world is so small to say the least.
a girl dad now too, going to your hat. Olivia's daughter's playing now, and he's turning into hockey dad. He's loving every minute of it. So
My God, he's probably just in his happy place, just being a hockey dad. What a beauty, just a beauty.
For sure. It's been fun to watch.
I like it. Well, kind of talking about your career. So you got the opportunity. You're an Alaska guy, played in the USHL, played in North American League. Excuse me. Got the opportunity to go back to play at Alaska Fairbanks. Like, what was it like making the transition from being up in Alaska and then going to junior hockey? Like, we always say that junior hockey is the hardest jump for anybody to make, from youth hockey to junior hockey. It's bigger than junior to college to pro. So what was that like, especially coming from a non-traditional type place, being able to come down and as a goaltender? Was it a pretty tough transition? Was it pretty seamless? What would you say?
Yeah, it had its challenges. There was a lot of excitement around it. My first year was actually in the BCHL.
The BCHL. That's right. Yeah. My bad.
I was with Vernon my first year, and it was exciting. I mean, we had a 20-year-old dub guy who was supposed to be the starting goalie, and he didn't have a great start to the season. They kind of took a chance on me. I got a lot of games early, and loved every minute of it. It was cool to be in a community that loved hockey as much as Vernon did, and walk into restaurants and people recognized you as a 17-year-old. That was kind of a cool experience. But to catch to all that, there was a lot of pressure. I remember winning a game. I think the score was about 8-6, and we beat Merritt. And the GM came down to the locker room afterward and was basically telling me he's going to trade me to Flin Flon if I continued to play that way, even though that we won the game. And it was a bit of a wake-up call in that regard. I played for Rick Trupp, who was he was a father mentor to me, probably 6 of my youth hockey years in Alaska. And if you ever get the chance to meet Rick, he's very soft-spoken. If you ever do anything wrong, he'll just kind of give you a look. And so that was kind of the coaching world I was used to. And then now I've got coaches screaming at me, telling me I'm going to ruin the team if I don't stop more pucks. And I was kind of on my heels going, oh my gosh, this is a wake-up call. I got to kind of learn to face the music a little bit in junior hockey.
We all did.
Yeah.
We all did. And that's why, like, I swear it's funny. I tell parents and kids all the time, like, if your coach coaches your kid hard in youth hockey, that's a good thing. Yeah. That is a good thing, because it ain't getting any easier every level you go up. That's for sure. And so,
times have changed a little bit. I'm not positive on that. I see more college hockey coaching than I do junior coaching at this point. But, I think that old school approach of, screaming at kids and doing all these things is becoming a little bit less, but I'm guessing there's still a pretty big transition. It's when there's people paying to watch you play, it changes things.
Oh, yes, it does. Well, let me ask you this, Steve. So, getting the chance to kind of research your playing career before this, and obviously I did a great job of that, saying NAHL and not BCHL. But one of the things that stuck out to me, we love rivalries. We absolutely love rivalries. You play 4 years at Alaska Fairbanks, taking over the big shoes of Wiley Rogers, I'm sure.
Yep.
But then the year after, you're on the coaching staff of Anchorage, the Seawolves. That must have been insane. Like, what was that like, going from like bleeding blue and gold, Alaska Fairbanks, playing there 4 years, having a great career, to taking the trek a little bit south down to Anchorage? Was that just a crazy transition for you, or what?
So crazy. I mean, my best friends were on the opposing team now, guys that I'd been competing against for 3 years that probably hated my guts. I'm now in charge of in our goalie sessions. So it was really hard. I remember our first game, it was so awkward and so cringy looking back, but I went onto the team bus at Fairbanks either before or after one of the games and just hey guys, I love you. I just tried to talk them off the ledge. The freshmen that were on the team that didn't know me from Adam were like, who is this Seawolf coach that's on our bus telling us he loves us? It was so weird, but it was tough, man. It was we ended up playing them in playoffs that year, and we won, which was again this bittersweet, where we were going to the WCHA tournament, but I just beat out my alma mater, and it got a little bit easier with time. But I think the rivalry was a challenge, and I think what most coaches experience. I was the same age as all the players, so trying to kind of separate yourself from still being one of the guys and trying to find that balance of acting like an adult and a coach and not one of the boys was another challenge for the next couple of years until you start to kind of grow apart.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine coaching for Harvard.
Yeah.
like I would rather die.
Yeah.
So I just like,
It was tough. I remember Rob Profit, who's the head coach or now GM of the Ice Dogs. He was the one guy that really helped support the decision. The pay discrepancy was tenfold between the two. And he was like, listen, I know you love Fairbanks. You've been a great guy here, but there's bigger things to this than just the colors. Like, you got to make decisions for your future. Go develop up there. If you want to come back and coach here in the future, that opportunity will be there. And I'll never forget that, because there were so many people that were just hell-bent on the rivalry, and they were just giving emotional, feedback on what color jersey you might be wearing, and not necessarily some responsible decision-making feedback. So I'll always love Prof for that one.
You mean people get emotional in hockey and make decisions based on that one?
No. Hope just said he'd rather die than coach for Harvard. No emotion in this game whatsoever. He's the father of 3 daughters. No, I'd rather die. No, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, they'll enjoy the will, all the crazy amount of money I made playing pro hockey for 2 years in the Central League, So well, no, that's awesome. You got to get your foot in the door somewhere, right? And to be able to coach with the staff like that, and to be able to learn from some of the guys that you were in the coaches room with, I'm sure it was great. And man, I can't even believe like you guys played against them in the playoffs too. Oh God, that would be so cringy.
Well, it was terrible when we went to a shootout. Maybe this is for the Governor's Cup. So for those that aren't familiar, both Alaska schools play each other. A lot of states have these rivalry games. And it ended up going down to a shootout. And UAF has won. My alma mater's won maybe 20 of the last 20 years. It's been in this crazy run. My freshman year was the first year we'd won in 7 years or something. And that's however long ago now. UAF hasn't lost since. And it's always been close. They're usually competitive. But that one went to a shootout. So I knew the shooters on the team really well. And they all had their moves. Like Colton Parayko was one of the shooters at the time. Colton Beck. And these guys had standard moves on breakaways. They did the same thing every time. They were always successful. So it was my first year coaching. I tell Gundy, the goalie, hey, Beck's going to shoot low blocker. He shoots low blocker every single time. I guarantee it. So Gundy stands over in the bottom left side of the net and just completely, and then Beck just shoots top glove in a wide open net. And he's looking at me on the bench like, what are you doing? It's only low blocker. And I'm like, well, yeah, don't just stand over there. You got to bait it a little bit. So I'm like, right, I'm done giving goalies advice on shootouts. I learned my lesson very quickly. It was so embarrassing. So we lose the shootout for the Governor's Cup. And then we had to play him the following weekend for the WCHA playoffs. But crazy.
That is such a great story. I love that because it's so true. Like, I know exactly what you're saying. Toph and I have talked about this on the podcast, talked about shootouts. Like, I had, I was going to do the same thing almost every single time unless something was like blatantly staring me in the face, like this goalie leaving the entire glove side open. Oh my. And then you on the bench, the feeling in your stomach of him putting it not where you said he's going to go. And you're like, oh my God, that's hilarious. I love it.
And the goalie his head goes right to the bench and he's staring at me and puts his hands in the air like, what are you doing? You told me the wrong information. I was like, oh my God, Gundy.
Yeah, I didn't say do nothing. You're like that movie where he's trying to get up on the surfboard. Do less. Well, you did nothing. Now you got to do something like that. Exactly. Love
Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Great flick. Yeah. Actually, the thing that came to my mind was he's the anti-Fulton Reed. He's going low blockers. Or no, not Fulton Reed, the anti-Gunnar Stahl. Gunnar Stahl, he's fancy. He's going to go glove.
Yeah,
and he was. In that day, he was.
the
Steve, another coaching thing I wanted to ask you about, not everybody gets the chance to coach at the Olympics, and you got the opportunity to coach the women. And one of Vex's very close friends and clients is Nicole Hensley. And we've had Nick on the podcast before. So what was it like getting the opportunity to be over there and coach the women at the Olympics, particularly with Nicole Hensley, and just talk about your experience being able to be there? That must have been unreal.
Yeah, I mean, Hens is a rock star, as you know. One of the most technically sound goalies I've worked with, regardless of gender. I think she's like the blueprint of what you want your goalie to look like from a technique perspective. So just having the opportunity to work with the athletes at that level was so impressive. And then the staff, I mean, you get these world-class doctors, these world-class strength coaches. And so just every day at dinner, I just felt so grateful to be able just to eavesdrop and listen to all these professionals talk about what was most important for athlete development. And and all these things. So, some of my favorite relationships were from those 4 or 5 years with that group. My Olympic experience was very unique. I'm somewhat grateful for it now. I got COVID the day we landed in Beijing. So I spent 11 days, the first 11 days of the Olympics, in their COVID prison system. And it was wild.
What does that mean?
Exactly, right? It was, I felt like I was
robot dogs.
It felt like Shawshank Redemption a little bit. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with that movie, but when they looks across and there's the cell's empty, and you're like, the person you don't really know, but you kind of been making eye contact with them for years is gone, and you're wondering, like, did they go to death row? Are they still around? And there's, you're stuck in this room. You're not allowed to leave. 1 minute every day they would come in and they take your blood oxygen levels. They give you a COVID test. And if you showed any symptoms, they were going to take you to the hospital, and you weren't no longer allowed to be in this kind of isolation setting. And I would be so afraid I was going to show symptoms because I was like sneezing and I had stuff, runny nose, all this stuff. Every time I would sit in the chair, they would say, "You work out." And I thought they were judging me. I'm like, not as much as I should. Like, I know I should be working out a little harder. What they were trying to say in broken English was that my heart rate was really elevated. And they thought I had been exercising right before I was coming to give this test. But really, I was just anxious about, popping and having to go to the hospital. But I would be listening to people cry themselves to sleep at night because they were the athletes that were missing their Olympic dreams. And the only human I had even seen in 11 days was the Swedish athlete across the hallway. And you could kind of like hear the people knocking on the door to do the test. And all of a sudden one day I looked through the people and the door is open, the room's empty, and no one's in there. And I'm like, is she alive? Like, where'd she go? Like, did she get out? Like, it was just such a bizarre experience. Yeah, it was crazy. We weren't allowed to bring our phones or laptops. The USOPC provided us with some burner laptops and phones. And I brought my phone because I just didn't want to deal with pictures and transferring. I'm like, I'll never turn my phone on. I'm just gonna use it for photos, and then I'll use my burner for cellular and all that stuff. To this day, I don't know if I would have survived because the place they had us didn't have Wi-Fi, and our burner phones didn't have cellular. So I would have been just isolated completely from the world for 11 days. But thankfully, I brought my personal phone, and then I could get on LTE. I was watching our games on the Hulu network, basically, and then I was WhatsApping our goalies afterward, any feedback and thoughts, and that's how I was basically coaching from isolation for a while.
What an animal! You're in a communist COVID lockdown prison. We got robot dogs and Swedish athletes missing, but you're watching the game on your prison Shawshank phone, reaching out to the goalies on what you're seeing. That is a true patriot and also a great coach. Love it.
There wasn't much else going on in that room. You start seeing stars after a while, but
dude, I can't even imagine solitary confinement. Well, let me ask you this. You talked about like the blueprint. You talked about Nick Hensley, who's a goaltender for that team, one of the probably top American goaltenders of all time. You talk about the blueprint of like what does that mean when you talk to kids, or you're talking to goalie coaches or coaches that are looking to coach goalies? Like, what does that look like? What does the blueprint kind of look like? What are some of the things that you're looking for technically of a technically sound goaltender?
Yeah, I mean, her specifically, but just goalies in general. Skating is so important, and I think that's a part of the position that's often overlooked, especially with our youth coaches. I find when I go to most team practices, they think goalie drill means shots because goalies stop pucks. So the more pucks I shoot at them, the more they're going to get hit with pucks, the better goalie they're going to be. So let's just shoot a bunch of pucks at them. In theory, that makes a lot of sense. The reality is there's so many little details that go into them being in position to get hit with the puck, or for them to be able to, read the release or read the play that's coming. And sometimes unintentionally, we create scenarios that don't challenge our goalies to move and work on some of the skating techniques. Or we've scripted the drill to a point where they're no longer making any decisions. They don't have to read the release because you've already told them that we're working on glove today and we're going to shoot glove. They don't need to read to the back door because you've already told them they're going to pass to the back door because you're trying to work on backdoor plays. We remove all the thinking from the development, and then we drop the puck for a game, and we haven't scripted out what the opposing team's going to do. And we wonder why the skill set we've been working on for weeks is not showing up in the game.
Makes a ton of sense, man. Well, Let's dive a little bit deeper into that, because you talk about like a practice design, and a lot of times, especially at the youth levels, there's little to no thought that happens with regard to the goalie and the goalie's development in there. You'll see a goalie get 14 shots in 8 seconds, or and by the end of 30 seconds of the drill, they're gassed, they can't even move, yet they continue to have to take shot after shot after shot after shot. Like, if you had any kind of like advice, maybe 2 or 3 things for youth coaches who don't know much about the goaltending position, as far as like how to structure drills, practice plans, so it can help not only the players, but the goalies as well, what would a couple things be that they could use?
Number one, simple, not easy, would be use one puck. Context is king in development, and we have multiple pucks. The context isn't relevant to the game any longer. The goalie coaches will do this often. Well, they'll have a spotted puck to the back door. They'll shoot a fake puck off the pad to simulate a rebound, but then they won't shoot the puck that they initially shot. They'll then have a spotted puck that they shoot. And in theory, again, it makes sense, because now you're going to get a bunch of consistent repetitions to the back door on a rebound. But the reality is, what makes that rebound save hard is reading that rebound, knowing when it hits your pad in a specific spot where it's going next, reading if that player can collect that puck and where they're likely to shoot it based on if it's rolling or if they get it in possession, all these different cues. And when it's a static spotted puck all the time, it's given our goalies misinformation on what the reality of that rebound is going to be like when you play the game. And when you use one puck, now everything is completely game-like. The timing to get to that one puck is game-like. The reaction of the player when it's coming at them hot and they have to try and collect it before shooting, now that's more game-like. And the reality is the goalie is going to become a better play reading goalie. The challenge, and I think where coaches find pressure, is that you can't control where that puck goes every time. So maybe it hits the pad and the player can't collect it, and now you feel like it's a wasted rep because they didn't get a clean second shot. And we get frustrated with how long it takes to get, in their mind, the perfect repetition of what they're looking for, but they're undervaluing all those repetitions that they didn't think looked the way that they wanted them to. Those are real games, situations that the players are learning. It's just going to take a little bit different pathway to it.
I absolutely love that. And I talk a lot about on the podcast about how towards the end of my career, I pretty much just stood in front of the net at all times if the puck was in the offensive zone, and played around the net so much. And I scored way more goals. And from the player side, it's the exact same thing. Because I started doing it all the time in practice, before every practice, I'd be tipping pucks, spinning, finding the rebound. After practice, same thing. As long as it didn't kill the drill, I'd go for the rebound off other guys' shots all the time. And the same thing happened for me as a player. I started to realize, okay, when a shot's coming here, if I spin this way on this angle, the puck more often than not pops out at this other angle, right? And I started to kind of find that from all over the ice around the crease, and it just makes sense. It's the exact same thing for a goalie, and a real game. Yeah, you only play one puck, and one of the most important things for the next save is tracking where the puck goes, so that you know what you're doing, where you're moving to, how you're moving, the angle you're going to take to cut the shooter off, all those things. That's so cool. Like I know why coaches do it, but I know why you're saying, oh, that doesn't make sense if we're speaking about specifically helping the goalie develop, because he's not learning where that puck's going and what do I do after a save that comes from this angle and the puck is going over there and things like that. Love that. That's awesome.
And I think what I enjoy most about it is it's mutually beneficial for both parties. And something I learned from Thomas Magnusson, who's in my chair for Ice Hockey Sweden, he didn't have much ground changing the world by saying this is right for goalies. But if he could say this is right for scoring goals, all of a sudden everyone started to listen. And then he got a lot done. So it's always been like, listen, you know it's good for goaltending, but just don't say it. Just say it's great for goal scoring. And then everyone's going to start to buy in and want to do it. And exactly to your point, you saw repetitions that allowed you to be a better goal scorer because you had the time to play out that second puck. It wasn't a spotted puck. You weren't rushed to get in line to get to your next rep because we need 14 shots in a row. And that's what we see at the youth hockey level, I think. And I do believe the infant years of the ADM a little bit brought this to the forefront because there was so much pressure to have repetitions. It was as many shots as possible, as many passes as possible. You never want your kids standing around. Time is money. There was all this pressure to get as many repetitions as you could in a short window. And we understand how expensive ice time is. But I think coaches got a little excited and a little overboard on it to the point now where, yeah, we're getting a lot of repetitions, a lot of shots, a lot of pucks. but how many of those pucks represent the game and are teaching the right behaviors? Or are a lot of these behaviors now get in line as fast as you can because you got to get that second puck, even though there's one sitting at the net front that everybody in a real game would be battling out to try and score? To me, and obviously through your experience, that is going to be a better hockey development standpoint than just getting your reps in and checking in and saying you got 14 for the day.
I mean, this is where I always say what you do is important. How you do it is more important. How you do things is so massively important. And so it's the same drill getting that second puck. But as long as the puck, doesn't go all the way down the zone and completely ruin the flow of practice, make them go and get that same puck. Because like you said, it's going to benefit the guys who are working on rebounding and scoring goals and knowing where the angles create, rebounds in different areas. It's also helping your goalie actually play like a real hockey game.
Yeah, totally. One of the things I really respected. So, I went to Cornell and got the chance to play and coach under Schaeff, and Schaeff every year, Cornell's got goalies at top of the save percentage and top goals against average for a team and the goalies and everything like that. And, as a player, it was like, yeah, we recruit really good goalies. We had Scrivens, we had Dave McKee, who was the Hobie Baker hat trick finalist, Lenevue before that, and always had a lot of success with goalies. And then when I got to coach with them and sit down and actually talk about practice plans, I was amazed at how much he talked about goalies in our practice plans and making sure that they're getting shots in game-like situations and making sure that, their habits, not just our habits as players, but their habits were being tended to, so you look at a youth practice, like how many shots do you see in a youth practice where there's a kid that skates the puck from the blue line in the middle of the ice, and then takes a shot at the hash marks, which is almost like a breakaway, which you never see in a game, which doesn't help the player because they're never going to see that. It's not going to translate. It doesn't help the goalie because he's not going to see those shots. But seeing different shots from different angles, from the dot line, from outside the dot, seeing different shots where you have to have a player cut to the middle and maybe there's a drop pass and they got to read it, and shots with traffic, from the point. Like, he was very intentional in our drill design of making sure that goalies were getting accurate reads and reps that they were going to see in the games. And so is that something that I saw it firsthand in the goalie development of the goalies that came through Cornell, but is that something that you talk about with coaches as well? Just making sure it represents the game and the reps that they're getting?
Yeah, it's so important. And it's, again, unintentionally very easy to do, where you may draw up at the board that you want the players to shoot from the blue line. But the reality is they dust it off a couple times, and by the time they actually release the puck, they're at the hash marks, right in the middle of the house, even though you told them not to. And it's really hard to change. Like, we all understand it. You want to score. That's the whole reason you're shooting the puck. Why would I shoot from here when I know I can take a couple more strides and actually have a chance to score? So it's challenging. There's a lot of great intended practices, but if we let the players do it, then they're going to continue to, and it's going to really start to snowball. So I have a really good friend who's Division I coach. I asked him a couple years ago if I could use the shot tracking app and just show him what his practices look like. And we had a good enough relationship. He knew I wasn't judging him. I was like, I just want to give you a picture of where your shots are actually coming from relative to what you think your practices are. And it was about 90% of the shots were right in front of the house, right in the slot. And in his mind, he had this diverse practice put together where he had all these different skills he was working on. And it was a great kind of aha moment to be a little more specific about, are we getting in goal line attacks? Are we getting in from behind the net play? Are we getting shots from the half wall? Those shots are only easy for the goalies to save if they've had repetitions at making those saves. And so often our practice design is always high quality scoring chances, because the reality is that's where we want our players to get to in games. So we think, well, let's create a bunch of scenarios where they get to the house and then they fire the puck. But when you look at an actual hockey game and where offense is generated from, rarely is it just clean street right to the house and fire the puck. It's usually a rebound, it's a bad angle shot, etc. And then we indict these goalies for not being great in post play. Like, we love these RVH fail videos right now. We love to talk about how goalies make terrible decisions in different areas of the ice. But most of the time when we go to these coaches that are so hell-bent that their goalies aren't doing a great job, and we watch their practice design, you're not having your players shoot the puck from the half wall. Of course, it's a really challenging decision to make for your goalie. If you drew a line from the middle of the net to the bottom hash mark, it's kind of a very big decision point for your goaltenders to make. If you go a little bit further, now they have to make a decision to integrate with their post and maybe do an overlap or maybe get into an RVH, anticipate a goal line attack. If you stay above that line, they can play it more traditionally and just be in their normal goalie stance that you would see if the puck was more in the middle of the rink. If you make a play right at that line where that goalie is indecisive on, okay, am I getting into my post or am I going to honor the back door? Like, there's a million things going on in your goalie's head. From a player perspective, that seems like a pretty benign area of the rink because it's so far away and it's a bad angle. But from a goalie perspective, there's 1,000 decisions that's going on in your head right there, even though it's far enough away. And if you can funnel a puck right at that moment that goalie's thinking, all of a sudden the save selection's a little goofy. The players have to shift to the weak side of the ice if it gets there. There's a lot of chaos that can be created. And I don't think coaches understand that unless they've played the position to recognize that that's kind of a weird area for plays to be made from. So challenge coaches to make plays from bad areas of the rink. See how your goalies and your defenders all can work together through that challenge.
That's great. That's great. I want to dive a little bit deeper into one of the things that you were talking about, and that's just like the decision-making that goalies have to make. A guy who I'm sure you know very well, one of my best friends in the game, Nick Petraglia, former goalie at Miami, coach at Miami, now running the Ohio AAA Blue Jackets. And one of the things that he always said is goalies are hockey players first and goalies second. Like, we got to start looking at goalies more as they're a player on the team. They're not just like this dude or this chick, that's on an island. They're a part of the team. They're a part of everything. And one of the things that we talk about too, as it relates to that, is like one of the most important things that we can teach goalies and really help them through video, through talking things out, is like the hockey sense portion of it. And we talk about hockey sense so much in the importance as players. It's even more important as a goalie to be able to understand and read different situations, like all the things that you just talked about from, in fact, who did we have on earlier talking about like the release points but just being able to read the play, read the puck off the stick, all that stuff. And whenever I get the chance, because people ask me all the time from like a recruiting perspective, like, what are you looking for in a goal? And like, I feel like so much of what people talk about is like, they want the big athletic goalie. And I'm like, not like, I would rather have the goalie that makes everything look really easy. Because if they look really easy, then they're probably really smart and they can skate pretty well because they're getting to their spots quicker than everybody else. So can you just talk a little bit to that? Just how can we maybe teach hockey sense with goalies? Is it video? Is it different reps? Like we were just talking about, putting them in situations on the ice. How important is it? And then how can we help to teach that at that position?
Yeah. So first I want to share a quote from Beezer. When I first started working with the team, he was the GM, and he made a comment that has always stuck with me, that goaltending is an art and we're trying so badly to make it a science. And it's stuck with me ever since we've talked about this, where he relates back to the success that he had, the success that Richter had. A lot of, Barrasso, back in his day, the goalies were a lot smarter and it was an art form and they all were solving this puzzle differently. And it seems like in the last however many years, we've really tried to make this a science where let's get the biggest body possible. Let's make everything about geometry. And we're just going to solve this with mathematics. And we're not going to have any decision-making take place. And I think if you look at the save percentage in the NHL, we're at a low that we haven't seen since probably the 80s, the early 90s. I mean, the percentages have really gone in the wrong direction. And we feel strongly from the research that we've done, it's because we've tried to make this so much of a science that we've stolen all the decision-making and thinking from our youth goaltenders. We just teach them the X's and O's, and we tell them where they need to be and why, and we tell them about angles and depth and squareness, and we tell them everything, and they don't think about anything any longer. And it only gets so far. I mean, the game's so fast. There's so many variables. There's so many times you think it's going one way, it hits a skate and goes the other. And if you're not a great play reader and a thinker, you're not going to be able to make that crazy save and anticipate that next play. So I always reflect on that when I think about kind of what we do to develop this skill set, is remember it's an art form. And that's something that in our goalie coaching education courses we talk about often. We reflect on, if you think of Martin Brodeur, he was known for being different than any other goalie. If you think of Dominic Hasek, all these goalies, Jonathan Quick, you think of the goalies that have really changed the face of the position, they don't look like the goalie that we all teach. They play the position completely different. It's their art form. It's the way that they express with their size and their talents. And I think as coaches, we take that away from our players. Another example we use is Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix played the guitar upside down and backwards. And our question to our goalie coaches, if Jimi Hendrix would have had a guitar coach, do you think we would know his name? right? Some coach would have come in and flipped that guitar around, told him he's playing it wrong. He probably would have just been a great guitar player, but not the best that we ever heard and saw back in the day. And I think sometimes that happens with our goalies. We have young goalies that play it different, and we tell them it's wrong, and we put them in this little box, and then we take away their secret power, and they never become Jonathan Quick. They never become Fleury. They never become all these goalies that play different than the norm. So ways that we encourage this from a player development perspective, we tell goalies not to specialize until 12U. Be a hockey player first. You can sample goalie. We'd love for you to play goalie. Play goalie for a period. Go score a goal. We call it the goalie how hat trick. You get a goal, an assist, and a save in a game. Be a hockey player first. That's what's going to lead you to reading plays later in life. If like myself, I think that was probably what hurt me the most. I started playing hockey because I was obsessed with goaltending. I played goalie every second of my life. I didn't understand hockey at all. When coach would start talking about systems, I would start daydreaming. When coach was at the board in practice, I was at my net drinking my water bottle. I wasn't paying attention at all because I didn't even know what he was talking. It could have been a different language to me for all I knew. And I think we see that a lot where goalies feel like they're a private contractor that just showed up to support this group of people instead of an actual active member of the team that understands the game. And if coaches can make the information useful for the goalies, then there's a reason they should be at the board. But a lot of times we're not talking to the goalie about what their responsibilities are when we're at the board. We're not even including them in any of the conversations. So slowly over time, they start to feel like, well, I don't need to go up there anyways. I know the puck's coming my way at some point, and my job's to stop it. Why would I go to the board? And I think as coaches, we can do a better job of explaining what the goalie's roles are within the same drill. We usually talk about what we want the forwards to do and what we want the D to do. Well, maybe we think about what we want our goalies to be working on in that same scenario, give them a few things to work on, and then give them some feedback afterward on how they're doing. You did this well, you can improve on this area, ask them some questions. To me, that's the next step in really supporting our goalies in practice.
Yeah. Do you think kind of like the best goalie coaches, just going along with what you're saying, are kind of like the ones who study what their goalie is? You know, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Don't try to put them in a box, but hey, let's make this specific goalie that I'm working with right now the best that they can be in their realm. Not necessarily, hey, there are a certain set of, and then I'm sure there are a certain set of things that you want every goalie to have, but like, hey, there's no cookie cutter. A goalie has to be this or that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I go back and forth with your point on, I think there might be a few things that are fundamentals. I think instinctually, I believe, yes, usually you feet are roughly shoulder width apart, your knees are bent, your hands, like there's some maybe anatomical things that are consistent across all sports. If you're returning a serve in tennis, you're in a base athletic stance. If you're squatting a bar, you're in a base athletic stance. There's some balance and some coordination that comes with a goalie stance. It's probably consistent across, but where I kind of get caught up, Joe Bertagna, who was a longtime goalie coach out east, coach of the Bruins back in the day, he walked me through Hossick's play reading and decision making. If you guys remember when he always roll around and make saves with the back of his glove all the time, everyone would say he's not even looking at the puck. It's lucky. He gets lucky every single night. Eventually we're going to figure it out. We're going to score on the empty net. But yet more times than not, he made that save with the back of his glove, even though he's facing the back of the rink. And the way Joe explained it is that when Hossick was working through these plays, traditional goalie and traditional goalie coach would say, stop with your outside foot, absorb that energy, and then push back against the grain to make that backdoor save. And Hossick had timed it out in his head where, yeah, sure, I can stop and then load and then push back, but that's a lot slower than if I just roll around on my back and throw my arm behind my head. I'm going to get that hand to that space a lot faster than if I got my whole body over there by stopping and starting. And so he had a method to his madness. But again, how many coaches today would allow their goalie to play like that in net? They'd be like, you're a fish, you're flopping around in the ocean. What are you doing? You got to have some structure to your game. And again, that's where I wondered, like, do we think that there's a set way a goalie should play because we built this box that we want to see and we hold these goalies accountable to this set of things? Could we see more dynamic play if we didn't always tell them they're doing it wrong when it looks different? I don't know.
Yep. Different doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah.
Different doesn't have to be bad. Well, I want to change gears here a little bit because I got the chance to hear you talk down in Nashville and up in Wisconsin over the past couple months. And one of the things that you guys, I don't want to say we're sounding the alarm about, but one of the things that is a real issue in youth hockey today is just the shortage of goaltenders. there is a huge shortage of goaltenders, and there's a whole host of reasons why. And so I guess kind of two parts to what I want to talk about. Number one is kind of why is that? Why do we have such a shortage of goaltenders, and kind of like, why is that a big deal? And then, after we kind of talk about that, I'd love to talk to you about certain things that youth organizations or governing bodies or whatever can do to help to increase those numbers. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have goalies, we don't have a game. Like, we need goaltenders. And so just to kind of start, what are you guys seeing, and why do you feel like you're seeing the numbers not where they need to be from a goaltending perspective?
Yeah, so it's been a handful of years now where slowly more and more emails will come through, or calls will come through that, hey, we don't have any goalies, we need help. And first we were wondering, is this anecdotal? It's just one team that doesn't have goalies. Is this really systemic? Is this an issue we should start looking into? So I started looking at all of our registration numbers over the past 5 years to see where we're at. And right now, today, we're sitting at 6.35% of our registered hockey players are goalies. And so to put that in perspective, if you had 10% of your hockey population goalies, and on your 20-person roster, 2 of them are goalies, or on your 10-person more recreational roster, 1 of them is a goalie. So that's kind of what our goal is. We have these 3 different goals that we try and measure our success within USA Hockey goaltending. And our first measurement of success is our hockey registration number 10% as a goaltender. And that would be healthy. I think we can do better, and I would shoot for more than that overall. But we're at 6%. So what that means is, of all the teams we know across the country that do have 2 goalies, that means how many do we know that have 0? Because that's the only way this math works, is if for every team that has 2, there's a lot of teams out there that have none. And I think we see this a lot in adult hockey, but we're not as familiar, where there's kids playing. I think I saw over 8,000 duplicated names when I looked at every registered goalie in the country, and then I hit remove duplicates. It was like 8,332 people that are playing goalie on multiple rosters across our country.
Wow.
There's a lot of kids that are doing the same thing beer leaguers are doing on, hey, we need a goalie today. I'll even pay you to play for me. Can you play on 3 teams back to back to back? Because there's no goalies in our adult league. And I think that we're starting to see that in the youth space, where there's just not enough kids to fill all these teams that we have. And it's a problem. We've got to figure out a way to make this position more inviting. We've got to better support these kids that try it, to make it welcoming and want to keep going with it. And so that's a big mission of ours, probably more important than anything we do, more important than high performance, more important than development, is getting someone to come in and actually try it and enjoy it and stay. Then we can worry about everything afterward.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you guys are talking about doing? One of the things, just even previously in our conversation, talked about goalies not specializing until 12U, but what are some things that you're talking about? What are some things that you're trying to implement with some of the youth organizations that you're getting in front of that can help to entice people to play the position, get people to keep playing the position? What are some of those conversations like?
Yeah. So our biggest hurdle that I see, and it's a youth sport problem in general. It's not specific to goaltending, but I think goalie, because it's such a high pressure position, maybe feels it the most. We've removed the recreational learn to play stage of youth sport. There is now an instant rush to play on the AAA team, the tier 1 team, fill in the blank with whatever high performance name you want. But basically what we've created is a space where we want high performance immediately. And the stakes have never been higher for the youth athlete. We pay more money than we've ever paid before. So parents feel entitled to a performance for their child. Their child's basically a professional athlete in some ways with some of the checks that these parents are writing. And with that becomes a lot of pressure. The position's really hard. It's really hard to be a good goalie. It's also really hard when the net is 5 times larger than your body is. So basically we're playing in too large of a net. We're holding these kids to a standard that's unreasonable for their age and the amount of time they've been playing hockey for. And then we wonder why they don't want to play anymore. We've got parents in the stands that are saying that these kids aren't any good and they're the reason that the team lost. We've got so much pressure that these kids feel and hear, and they go, why would I want to be a goalie and have to face the music right now when I can go be a forward or a defender or go play a different sport and not be criticized for having a flip shot go over my head because I'm playing in a soccer net right now. And so I think there's a lot we need to do to improve this. Some of the things that we're encouraging are what we talked about earlier, not specializing too early. Let these kids share the net with a bunch of friends. Don't have goalies play full games at younger ages. Have them split periods. Maybe they get 3 shifts a day. And then even if 8 goals go in, you don't feel like you let in all 8. You don't feel like you're the person that let the team down. You're no longer not getting invited to the sleepovers or not sitting in the cool corner of the locker room. There's a lot of social pressure that also comes with this. And I think we forget how impactful that is for a 9-year-old kid to not feel like they're contributing to the team positively. And a lot of kids don't want to just grit it out and figure it out. And I think some coaches, they use this old school approach and they go, well, you're never be a good goalie if you're not willing to grind it out and just become better. Like, that's the nature of the beast. You signed up to be a goalie. This is what you have to do. And if we continue with that mindset, we're going to continue to see kids not want to play goalie. I think we've got to support them instead of just point our finger at them and say, well, you put the gear on, you suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, just hearing you talk here and then hearing you talk the other spots, you talk about like the big nets, especially at the youngest of ages. And that makes a lot of sense. Like, if you're playing goalie in what seems to be a soccer net for some of these 6 to 8 U's, and you're getting scored on every freaking shot because they have an like enormous spot to shoot at, like, that's not fun. You're not going to fall in love with the position or the sport if you're not having any success and you're always failing. And so, like, yeah, it's interesting. The other thing that I know you guys talked a lot about too, as it relates to, not specializing so early, but one thing that has come out that more youth organizations need is this quick change equipment. Mm-hmm. So there's this quick change equipment where you can, it's a really small amount of time. I'll let you kind of explain what it is and how valuable it can be, but can you talk a little bit about the quick change equipment and how that can help to create more of a love for playing goalie and also a lesson of like the specialization and how you can kind of use it?
Yeah. So it's really cool stuff. Basically, it's a large shin pad. It's got 2 straps. You put it right over top of your normal player equipment. So you can have an athlete switch from goalie to forward in about a minute. And now it's really allowing for these kids, like I said earlier, they can go play goalie for 2 shifts. Maybe it's 3 minutes total, make a save or 2, and then go out and play forward again. And so then again, if your club and your association hasn't committed to using age-appropriate nets, at least you're not spending your entire day in that soccer net. You can make a couple saves, maybe have a couple go in, but then you can go score and flip the puck into the big net yourself and at least feel like you had some fun that day instead of always being the one tied to the net like Goldberg. And so we've really seen a lot of success with using this quick change equipment. The other benefit we've seen is that there's a lot of families, there's a stigma that comes with the position. If you think of goaltending back in the 1950s, you didn't wear any equipment. If you did your job well, you were getting stitches and you're bleeding all over the ice. If you didn't do your job well, the puck was going in the net all the time. So it's a lose-lose. Who on earth would want to be a goalie? And I think some of those stigmas have continued into 2025, where now everyone still says, if you're going to be a goalie, you got to be crazy. The puck hurts, all these things. The reality is that's not true anymore. The gear is amazing now. A lot of goalies are choosing to play the position, having a lot of success in net, but then also away from the game with some of the leadership skills that are required to be a goalie. And so I know that some of our messaging now, specifically with our goalie parents, we'll ask them, what makes you proud about being a goalie parent? And they'll try and instantly say, well, it's so, they try and go down to the negatives all the time and say, no, like, sit back and think about what you're proud of. And they'll get tears in their eyes talking about their child in net, knowing how much pressure they're facing and being one to stand up to it and making that big save and silencing the away crowd with the big glove save. And they're so proud of their kids, but I think by default, they like to complain about all the things that are stressful about being a goalie parent. So we're trying to kind of shift the mindset a little bit on how cool it is to be a goalie, how great of a responsibility it is, how it's almost a superpower in a lot of ways, and embrace that as the parent, embrace that as the goalie, and instead of always defaulting to the negatives all the time. So I think those are some of the things that we're trying to really push, getting them into the net for shorter durations, empowering the responsibility of doing it. And then ideally, from an administrative perspective, can we create an environment that's going to breed more success for these kids? Can we play in smaller nets? It's not a secret. Every other sport in the world does it. Why is hockey so resistant to it? I don't know, but we're still fighting the good fight.
You ain't cool unless you pee your pants. I like how you're turning the goalies are weirdos on its head. Okay, yes, I respect it. Yeah. I respect I see what you're doing. I respect it. I know a lot of Goldbergs out there that are kind of interesting goalies, but I got to ask you this question because sure. I've been thinking about it the whole podcast, and this is something like your answers. Like you have we've done how many episodes, like 350 or something? I don't know, 400, a billion. We've done a billion episodes, basically. Your answers have been some of the best I've ever heard. I've really, really enjoyed being on this podcast today. I love what you said about the artistic versus the scientific, because I feel somewhat the same way in the gym with training elite athletes too. Like, yes, there's so much science, but like, we don't need to be absolute Poindexters. And there are things that cannot be measured that should be worked on that make hockey players better artists with their skill out on the ice, that I think can and should be worked on in the gym. So I totally felt you there. But here's my question. I've been burning to ask the whole time. Goalie goes down in the net. His head is below the crossbar, and he gets popped in the mask. Is that the shooter's fault or the goalie's fault? I'm talking about in practice here.
Yeah. Boy.
His head is inside of the net, like crossbar level or below.
That's an easy one. I think that is squarely on the goalie.
My God. Thank you.
It would be a little challenging if it was above the crossbar. That was where I
could
still
see that.
I still think, I don't know. I'm pretty hard on the goalies. I find it to be a real negative quality of a goalie that complains when they get hit in the face or complains when they get scored on. I think that's something that we're constantly trying to teach out of our goalies. And I've been very pro goalie on this podcast, so I will kind of get on the opposite side here. I think one of the biggest hurdles that we have in the goalie community is because sometimes we feel like we're a victim so often that we do our best to protect them, whether we're the goalie coach, whether we're the goalie parent, whether we're the head coach. And we will deflect any responsibility from the goalie because we know that they're this victimized community within the sport, and we know how hard life is, so let's try and bubble wrap them as best we can. And I think that's when we really get these goalies that, God forbid, it hit him in the face. Now I'm going to throw my stick in the air and I'm quitting practice. Or God forbid, there's a backdoor play and this power play design is way against me and I'm never going to make a save. This is cheating. I quit. Or the one I hear most often, there was 7 breakaways, so it's not my fault. I didn't have a bad game. My team sucks. It's just, we create this kind of victim mentality. And that's another thing that we preach to these goalie families is, listen, we have to be leaders. We have to take responsibility. Sure, there's going to be situations where somebody fires one off your chin. Assume positive intent. He wasn't trying to hit you in the face. He missed his spot, maybe, depending on.
That's just trying to hit him in the face.
Like for the kids and the guys, the girls on the team that were great teammates, you weren't trying to hit him in the face, but we've all played with those guys that maybe you were going to wire one off his head because every time you do, he puts his arms in the air and he complains. So you're like, all right, buddy, this guy, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the more you complain and act like that, the more your teammates are going to want to hit you in the head.
Exactly.
100%.
Those are the life skills that I try and preach to the parents as well. Like, if you allow this on the ice, they're going to bring that to the boardroom. They're going to be the same guy in their business one day that's complaining that they didn't get the raise because this, that, and the other. They're never going to take responsibility. Let's remove hockey from all of these life lessons and talk about how this is going to impact your child moving forward as an adult, as a human, as a parent. And sometimes that's a more relatable message to a parent, and they'll buy into that more so than the hockey talk. But I find there's so few things in the game that you can't immediately translate to parenting or being a business partner, et cetera. It's so important for the game.
100%. 100%. Good question. But the big question, if it was like Lurgy or I, and we're standing and we're still underneath the crossbar, then
for me, I'd always say to goalies, if the puck would have went in the net and it hits you in the face, that is completely on you. If you're standing and I shoot it outside of the net where it would not be a goal and I hit you in the head, that is on me in practice. But if it would have went in, if you're not standing there, that is completely your save selection that made the puck hit you in the face. That was going in. You're an idiot. So I'm so glad the goalie guru clarified that. I'm gonna have to send this to at least 10 to 20 goalie teammates.
Who have like a Billy Madison chart of people I want to kill.
Exactly.
You're on there.
When he said don't shoot it from the hash marks, first drill, that was me every day, baby. I'm here for confidence in practice, not for you to proceed to the borophyll.
To defend a little bit on that point, though, I will say, generally when goalies are more hot to flip, it's when the practice design is so redundant and boring to them that they're frustrated not at you for hitting them in the head. They're frustrated that their coach just designed a drill where they're getting 7,000 shots from the hash mark, and you just happen to be the one that accidentally hit them in the head, and they were already on that tipping point because they're so frustrated with practice design. When that happens in a game, goalies very rarely, if ever, freak out because it's a one-off and they're not set up to fail. But when you can design a really positive practice environment where the goalie feels like they're getting better, they feel like the drills matter and are game-like and are going to actually support them in their career, you're going to have a much longer fuse before they snap. When practice seems like a joke and you're wondering why on earth you're out there and is this even about me, then that fuse is this short, and God forbid you hit him in the collarbone because now all bets are off.
Oh, that's so true. I'm thinking about all the times I saw goalies snap, whether it was me shooting or me shooting. It was it was usually because they were so pissed off at the drill we were doing and just like you said, 7 shots in a row. Boom, boom, boom. They have no chance on any of them. And then I come down and bing off the dome. See ya. That's great.
Well, Vex, I know you got to run here. You're on vacation. You gave us an hour. I got a couple more questions for Steve here, but any last parting words?
I just want to finish with saying that I'm so glad I'm vindicated on the shooting thing. But no, Steve, dude, you're awesome. You are awesome. This was such a great episode. We got so much stuff out of this. I guess if I had one more question, I love scoring goals. My favorite thing to do in the entire world. You as a goalie talking to shooters, I always like asking goalies this question. I talk to the podcast all the time. Always say that one of the reasons I started scoring more goals when I got older is because I would always ask goalies, when I score, like, why is it happening? And when you save it and it looks easy for you, why? What am I showing you? What am I telling you? So to give our shooters out there some help, because I always want to do that, help can worry about the goalies after. What are some things that shooters can be doing that make the goalie's job much harder?
My first tip, I can't shoot very well. I was a goalie my entire life. 5-hole. 5-hole is one of the easiest shots. If you can aim right off the heel of the goalie stick, most goalies, even at the NHL level, they're going to try and beat you with their legs, and they're not going to move their stick. And so if you can put it right off the heel of the goalie stick, that's going to be the furthest up the goal pad before it gets the ice. Obviously, think about the pad, the boots on the ice. As they drop, then the ankle is going to hit, then the knee all the way up. So you're trying to basically get as far up that leg pad you can get before it's going to hit the ice. So many goalies, if you're close enough and you throw it right off the heel of the stick, they're not going to move their stick at all. They're going to try and beat you with their knees. And depending on how quickly you can shoot and how quickly they can get down, it's physically impossible for them to make that save without moving their stick. And so, like, as you see Crosby coming down and he's just sitting there slowly stick handling on a breakaway and he shoots it quick 5, and everyone's going like, how on earth did that go in? Everyone in the building knew he was going 5-hole. It's because he's putting it off that area where if the goalie doesn't move his stick, he can't physically get his pads down fast enough. It's a free goal every single time. So that's what I always do. Like when I'm shooting against some higher quality goalies, I don't have the shot to beat them, but I can sometimes do that, and they don't even know that they're not moving their stick.
Awesome.
You're seeing that a lot more at the NHL level too, like that exact
so
shot that you're talking about, whether it's shootouts, breakaways, in tight, and 5-on-5 play. People are starting to figure that out. So that's cool to hear you kind of talk about the why of that. Yeah.
And I think, again, it comes back to this science approach. The goalies just default to butterflying because that's the scientific approach to making the save. They're not thinking about reading the release, and like it would be so simple to move your stick a millimeter to make contact with that puck, and you make it every single time. But if you don't even think about it, you just drop and you hope, then it's going to beat you. The other area I would say is changing the angle. I think so many shooters don't understand the puck's perspective versus their own. And so a lot of times that I'm working with shooters, I'll put a GoPro on like you can take the suction cup that coaches will use on glass to watch from behind the net, and you can actually suction to the puck. And so now there's a GoPro that sees exactly what the puck sees. Put another GoPro on the helmet of the player and just have them see the difference on what they think is available versus what the puck actually sees. And I think a lot of shooters do this without even knowing what they're doing. Like you've had so much success shooting to a certain spot that you just shoot there by default because it's worked and you're getting positive reinforcement for doing it. But then when you see the puck's perspective, the net is wide open, but you have no idea because your eyeballs aren't over there to see it. And so there's just like such a relationship between the puck's perspective and your own and being a righty versus being a lefty and what that affords you against each goalie that you play against. If the goalie catches right versus coach catches left, there's such a chess match that's, you can see me smiling as I'm talking about it. That's what I love about this so much, is because there's so many different variables depending on the goalie and their size and what hand they catch with, and the shooter and their size and their hands. And that's what makes this fun, is trying to figure out where that pawn needs to go next to checkmate the opponent. And the best goalies in the world see it that way and don't just drop by default.
Dude, that conversation right there is my favorite. I love talking to every goalie. Okay, like what if I do this and then this? Like, what are you thinking? And I love that you said that about what the puck sees versus the eye sees. Young players never think about this thing. The only reason I got lucky with it when I was probably in like first year of college, I was doing a lot of goalie schools just so I could get more shots every day. And one of the coaches like was coaching the goalie. They called it little net, or when you'd be in butterfly, you'd push your hands out so that you get closer to the puck, which then makes the angle way harder for the puck to get in. And I was like, what? You're going to do that? And you think you, and then he got that on the ice. He's like, look from here, and then look from your stick, and then look from the goalie. And I was like, oh my God, dude. Okay. Like that is totally different. And I started like shooting from out here where it didn't look like I was going to be able to shoot. My shot would be super weak, but the goalie's like, he's not shooting it from out there. And it's not what I'm seeing. It's the puck that's 4 feet out that's going in like so easily, like the shot you're talking about with 5-0. These are the most fun conversations for me. I appreciate you indulging me, and thank you for taking the time. Sorry, I got to go, boys, but I got a little family photo shoot on the beach for our daughter's first vacay. So,
nice. Enjoy.
Tank listeners, make sure you share this one because this one was awesome. Toph, love you, bro. Have a good one, guys.
Love you too, buddy. See ya. All right, couple more questions. Yeah. It's too bad the talent's gone here, but we'll try to make do. So one of the questions I have for you, and again, going back to hearing you talk, and that was just kind of like the mental toll that being a goalie can take, particularly when there's only one of you on a team. And it related to, when you were talking, it related to the conversation that we were having before about a goalie shortage, is that a goalie doesn't have like a partner, a brother or sister, or a teammate to talk goalie stuff, because like we talked about earlier, most coaches have not played the position, so as a goalie, even if you're really excited about it, you're a goalie nerd. And I mean that in the best way possible. Like you don't have anybody to kind of go back and forth with. You're the one that's taken all the shots, every practice, every game, and the mental toll that takes. And so can you talk a little bit about just like the shortage of goalies and how that's affecting our goaltenders that are playing goalie because of that mental load and that inability to, like, I think of Swayman and Ullmark, when they were playing in Boston together, and they were like best buddies, and they had all that whole thing that they would do before and after the games and stuff. And goalies not necessarily having that. Can you speak a little bit to that as well?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge with this, is one of the, I guess, unintended consequences of having a shortage is that there are just more goalies that are alone. And that isolation has caused it to be less attractive. So it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy of less goalies, because now we have less goalies, so the intensity's higher. I mean, think back to your youth sport experience, specifically when you're first starting out in a more recreational pace. Maybe you wanted to go to your sister's birthday party, or maybe you wanted to go to a vacation with your family. If you're the only goalie on the team's telling you no. Like, you're not allowed to not be at practice. You're not allowed to miss a game. You're the only goalie on the team. If you're not there, the net's empty and we can't play. There's so much more pressure to be there every second and be on every second. You're a young kid, you're immature, as you should be, and you can't have an off day because everybody else's experience is worsened by your day not being perfect. And I think these kids sometimes shy away from that. There's such a benefit to having a goalie partner there that you can lean on, like you said, to have these conversations with. You don't feel like you're the scapegoat for everything. You've got somebody to kind of lean on. Also teaching the dynamics of being a good goalie partner. I think that's another area that we see a lot of goalies now, and a lot of goalie families that intentionally will hamstring associations and say, I'm not going to play for your team unless I'm the only goalie. These parents want all the minutes. They want all the shots. They think more is better. And what they don't realize is that all of the development and benefits that come from having somebody in practice that's pushing you, or having somebody you can confide in, or when you do have a bad day, somebody that can bail you out and support you. We need that as a goalie. And we do have a lot of high-performing goalies that are not great teammates. and really struggle with being a teammate once they finally have one, because for maybe 8 of their 10 youth hockey career years, they were by themselves. Now they get to junior college hockey and they have to learn how to play nice in the sandbox with their other goalie partners. And they're not doing that very well. And there's a lot of people that don't play because they're not great teammates, because in my opinion, we never taught them how to be one. We just left them off in their island as our youth hockey coach, as a parent, as the whatever. And I think that's on us a little bit as role models and leaders, that we let that kid get that far down the road without teaching them those life lessons.
Yeah, not to mention the competitive aspect to it too, like actually competing for, being the number 1 or 1A or whatever it may be, getting the tough team versus the not so tough team in youth hockey. That we talk about that from a player standpoint too. You got to compete for your spots, and the better the depth your team is, the more you're going to have to compete for spots, and the better your development is ultimately going to be too. So the last question I have actually kind of dovetails to what you're talking about, and that's like being a good teammate. So, I think back, and I believe more in this now than I think I did even years ago, but there are certain goalies that the team in front of you want to play for. And there are certain goalies that guys just, they're okay not getting in front of a shot. And a lot of time it comes down to being a great teammate, being a hard worker, being, a huge part of the team from a culture standpoint. Is that something that in your experience, maybe as a player or as a coach, or, just understanding the goalie position a lot better than all of us? Like, I know that there's goalies that I've coached that guys would dive in front of a shot with their teeth to make sure that it didn't go in, and would make sure that, like, they would almost feel like they would let the goalie down if they messed up on an assignment. And then there's other goalies that people have played in front of where it's just kind of like, I don't really like this guy. Like, it's his fault, not mine. Like, I'm not gonna buy in as hard. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but like, there's certain goalies that guys want to play in front of and certain not. Is there truth to that from your perspective as a goaltender and doing what you do?
Yeah, I think massively. You have a lot of eyes on you. You are a leader, whether you want to be or not. Just given the inherent nature of the position, so much of the game is determined by you, that your teammates need you, and you have to be great. And I think the goalies that really embrace that, and they're a great role model, when your goalie's willing to dive in front of any puck in practice and take one off the chin and not complain, you want to do the same thing in the D zone on Saturday night, because he took one off the collarbone on a 3-on-1 that wasn't realistic, and maybe it was the 7,000th shot of practice, and you still saw him doing everything he could to get hit with the puck, even if it didn't feel that great. And now all of a sudden you want to go to war with him on Saturday. And when you don't see that behavior in practice, or you don't see that behavior in games, when you see your goalie quitting on pucks, when you see your goalie that isolates himself socially and isn't one of the teammates that's a great, person for you when you need him even off the ice, then you're going to be less willing to do that in the game or away from the rink. And again, I think that's our responsibility as coaches, and I'd say specifically goalie coaches, and my role is we need to quit isolating these goalies. It shouldn't be you get a separate workout from the team and you're going to do butterfly goalie saves with dumbbells in your hand, and you shouldn't have miss practice to go work with your private goalie coach. You see that a lot. I'm not going to go to practice today because I've got a 45-minute lesson with my goalie coach on the synthetic ice. We do so many things with our youth goalies that just tell them you're not really a team member. You're, again, like I said earlier, this private contractor. And they start to feel that way. They start to believe it. They start to say the rules don't apply to me because I'm the goalie. And then your teammates feel that. And they go, this guy's a prick. He doesn't listen to any of the team rules. He does whatever he wants. He doesn't care what we do because he's on his island. I'm not going to block that shot for that guy. Or maybe the other goalie is willing to do whatever it takes and is proud of the jersey and the logo on the front, and that's the one you want to play for. And again, I think that's parenting. I think that's coaching. I think that's mentorship. I always feel strongly, whatever athlete that we've received, it's never personal. I never feel like it's on them. I feel like, okay, we've got to figure out a way to change this, because clearly somebody's allowed this behavior to take place for however many years till they got here. And they are only a product of their environment. So how can I create a better environment to get them out of this position? One of the quotes from Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but he wrote a book, and one of the chapters is never let your child do something that makes you not like them. And I thought about that for a long time, and it made me think a lot of coaching. when you let people that you are kind of developing and mentoring do things that make you not even like them and you love them the most, you're their parent, you're their coach, you're their whoever, you have a longer runway with them than anybody else in the world. If you don't like them for that behavior, imagine what a stranger is going to think about. And I think about that all the time with coaching or parenting. A kid on the way in September, and I think about this often. If there's going to be something that's going to make me not like them, then clearly we need to correct this behavior, because that's not going to be very great for the general society, their next teammates, their next coaches, etc. And I think that's what leads you to your situation when you don't want to block a shot for a teammate. Clearly, they're doing a lot of things that make you not like them very much. And what can we do to change that?
Or on the other side, you are doing things that are going to make people even like you even more. Like I think about backup goalies or 1B goalies at whatever age, that are always the ones playing rebound at the end of practice. Hey, I need to work on this. Can you get in the net so I can work on this shot or this habit or whatever it may be? And they're always, whatever you need. Those goalies typically, when they do get in, have a lot of success because the boys or the girls are playing hard, in front of them. And just as an example, I was coaching a midget hockey team one year, and we had two very different goalies. We had one goalie who 6'3", all the ability in the world, very technical, and then we had one that was like 5'9", who was just a street hockey goalie. He was going to do anything and everything that he could to get in front of a puck for the fellas. Yep. And it was really interesting because the one goalie that was so really good technically, had all the natural ability and everything. One of the things that I noticed is like our team didn't play as hard when he was in the net. And I'm thinking why, and then I'm kind of trying to be a little bit more aware of it in practices, even of things that are going on. And one of the things that I noticed, if it was a full ice practice and we were doing a drill that just involved one goalie, some kind of 5-on-5 situation or anything like that, that goalie would be on the other end of the ice working on something by himself, just by himself. And I'm like, that's interesting. And in one way, it's like, okay, he's working on his game. That's good. But on the other hand, he's not with the team. He's not with the team, and he's not getting in there when the other goalie needs him. And it's kind of like a hassle as a coach in practice. Hey, get over here. We got type stuff. And he was never the goalie to play rebound after practice. He was always off on his own. And again, working on his game. He's a goalie nerd, which is great. But I remember having a conversation with him about it, and it was a really interesting conversation because it was one of those conversations as a coach where you're trying to get through, but you're trying to hear his point of view too, because in his mind, he's like, I'm doing what I need to do for the team. I need to be my best self, and I'm working really hard at my game, and the players don't see me when I'm watching video and YouTube and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, I get that, buddy, but there's also a team side to this. It goes back to Trags' comment. You're a hockey player first, you're a teammate first, you're a goalie second, and you're losing respect from the team because you're always by yourself and you're always on your own. And so let's meet in the middle. We got to meet in the middle here, and I can work to make sure that you get time in practice to do your technical stuff that you need to do. But you got to meet me. When the team is with the team, you got to be with the team. So does that ring a bell? Does that make sense? Does it kind of put things, I just think a real world, maybe anecdote to that might help put that in a little bit of a bigger picture for everybody listening.
Yeah, it's so important. And again, that's the leadership that these goalies need, because it reminds me of the forward that the team loses 6-3, but they get the hat trick. And they think that best day of my life, I scored 3. I did my job. It's on you guys that you didn't do yours. That's
where that as a goalie.
Goalies will do that. And I think it's because, again, they get told that, hey, you did your job. It's everybody in front of yours job now. But the more we talk about them being a teammate, and it's not just always about you. It can't be, but it's really easy to fall into that as a goalie because it is isolated by nature. It is very different. So you start to kind of feel that way. But when we reinforce that as parents, as coaches, as teammates, that's the behavior you're going to now see with your college teammate or your college kid you're coaching. I think we can do a better job. Nobody likes that teammate that just cares about their own statistics and doesn't care about the team. And if they win or lose, and we see that on both sides of the puck. But I think it happens more frequently with goalie because, again, when they get in the van afterward, it's like, hey, I know you guys lost 2-1, but you made 49 saves. You did your job. And so the goalie starts to see it as it's my job. It's not the team's game. And there's separation. And when we reinforce that, they start to believe it and they start to, repeat that with their teammates. So I think it's really important that we don't do that. But the other caveat to all this, and it's something I'm sensitive to and want to protect a little bit, I think there's another area of the goalie position that lends itself to more introverted people. And I don't think the message is you have to be the good time Charlie to be a good teammate. You don't have to be the one that's front and center dancing on the table at the team get together to be a great teammate. Maybe you are a little more introverted. Maybe you do like the isolation. Maybe being a winger is going to be too much social stimulation. So you like playing goalie, and that's what made you a goalie in the first place, is to be in your crease and kind of be alone. So, and we see a lot of goalies that are that way personality wise. And I think there's a reason for it, but we still need to teach them how to be a good teammate. That can't be an excuse to not be a good teammate and always be alone. You don't need to be the cheerleader, but you still need to make some decisions at times that maybe aren't in the best interest of your technique, but the guys are going to love playing this little mini game at the end of practice, and the morale is going to get higher. And maybe if you're always serious all the time, crack a joke, smile, make a save in a crazy way. Don't always have it be so technical. That alone is going to make your teammate love you more than making the big save tomorrow. And we're not trying to win tomorrow's game. We're trying to win in March. So let's do these little things now to have those guys buy in and be eating pucks for you 3 months from now.
100%. Individual success comes from team success, baby. It's not the other way around.
Yeah.
It's not the other way around. Well, Steve, we're going to keep you for a couple more minutes here to do a little short rapid fire 10 questions that'll be housed in our Hockey Think Tank community. But this was such a great conversation, man. You're doing such good work with USA Hockey and all the work that you're doing around the country and making goalies better, making goalie coaches better, making coaches that aren't goalie coaches better at coaching goalies and everything in between. So really appreciate your time here. If you're not in the Hockey Think Tank community yet, head in there you can get more awesome information and stuff from guys like Steve. So thanks a ton. Appreciate your time and great stuff here today.
Before we jump into the question, I do want to add one piece that I get a question all the time from goalie parents, and I'm hoping this will be helpful for coaches as well, is whenever parents are calling me and asking, should I go to this next team next year? Or there's all these decisions, specifically this time of year. It's a stressful time for parents and goalies to know what the right decisions are, no matter what level you're playing. And just want to give some priorities on what to make most important for development. And number one, is your goalie going to play? I think one of the biggest fallacies that we've been pitching and I've been hearing for years is that playing at the highest level, the practices are better, the shots are going to be better, you're going to develop more. You might not play very much, but because you're on the ice with all these people for this many practices out of the year, you're going to get much better. So play on the highest team possible, regardless if you're going to be in the net during the Saturday, Sunday games. Data is not supporting that. What we see is that to be a better goalie, you have to play hockey games. Practices are important for sure, and maybe if we did them better, which we talked a lot about at the beginning of the podcast, it would be more important. But right now, the data is not supporting that just getting good shots in practice relates to being the best goalie in the world. So go somewhere you're going to play. Make sure you're going to play. Make sure that coach respects developing the entire roster and not just cherry picking the best goalie and playing them the most, because you might not be that goalie. And now all of a sudden you're watching hockey for a season and you're going to start to get leapfrogged. The other is make sure that you have a goalie partner if you can. I know some small communities don't have access to having a goalie partner. And if that's the case, then let's make the most of it and maybe bring goalies up from the lower levels, bring goalies down from the higher levels to practices. So you at least have goalie partners in practice. But if you have the option to choose a team with another goalie, and then choose one with a competitive goalie. Someone's going to push you and make you work a little bit harder because they make some pretty cool saves that maybe you can't make yet, and now that's going to motivate you to do some extra things. And then lastly, find out if this club has a goalie development spot for you. Do they have a goalie coach? Do they have a plan for what your goalie is going to do in practice? Are they going to talk about you at the board? Do they have a plan for game management? Those are the questions I would ask this next club if you are making these decisions. Prioritize those in that order, and odds are you're going to find a home that's going to be a better spot for you next season.
Amen. And so much of what you just said is translatable to forwards and defensemen too.
Sure. Exactly.
So great stuff. All right, Steve, thanks a ton, man.
Yeah, of course.
The NBA 82-game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and draw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, maybe even more? It's your call. Here's something special for first timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only, and bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.